Welcome to Now and Next, a podcast that looks at the ways technology is changing media and entertainment. And it's brought to you by the Canada Media Fund. I'm Leora Kornfeld. On this episode, Stephanie Harvey. She's originally from Quebec City. She's been named to the Forbes list of 30 under 30, to the BBC's list of 100 inspiring women, and she's a 5-time champion in her sport. Wait, you're saying, then why haven't I heard of her? That could be because her sport is playing video games, competitively, and at the highest possible level in the world. It's called Esports, and it's a global phenomenon. Not only is Stephanie one of the top female players in the world, she's a professional player. So she's got managers and agents and sponsors, and I can only imagine how many frequent flyer points she has. Oh, she also has a degree in architecture, a diploma in video game design, and she spent 8 years as a game designer at Ubisoft in Montreal. With all of these things in mind, it shouldn't surprise us that Stephanie has a keen understanding of more than just playing Counter-Strike. That's the game that she holds the 5-time championship for. She also really gets how the whole industry works.
We have superstars in Canada in almost all the games. I think Canada is a market that hasn't been exploited, so we don't know if it can be successful, kind of.
So, we've got a lot to learn about what exactly is up in the world of esports, how Canada is doing in relation to the global scene, and where things have yet still to go. In just a second, we'll find out with today's guest, esports champion, and I'm going to say all-around cool role model, Stephanie Harvey. Stephanie, you spend a lot of time on planes, don't you?
I do, honestly. It's funny you say that, I do.
So what I want to know is, if and when you strike up a conversation with somebody on a plane and they say, "What do you do?" What do you say to them?
Oh my God, I hate that. It happens in planes and in cabs, like in taxis.
Ah, yes.
And I always go very vague. So for example, for planes, I'll be like, or a cab, I work in video games. And then if they say like, "Oh, that's cool," and then they change subject, I know they know nothing about it and they don't care at all for it, and that was it. I didn't have to explain much. But if they go, "Oh, like, do you make the games and like you program?" And I'm like, "No, actually." And then it evolves, and then sometimes people are like, "Oh yeah, I've met pro gamers before, or I've seen these competition." And this is when we can go a little bit deeper in what I do. But usually I leave it vague, so that way they can move on with their life and I won't be upset.
So you've been pro since, what, 2005?
Yeah, actually, you did good research. I've been pro since 2005. It's been a long journey, especially since pro back then this didn't mean the same thing as what pro is now. Back then, you had peripherals, maybe like a jersey, and your contract was to make sure that you would pretty much be quote-unquote loyal to your team, but it didn't really mean anything. And sometimes they would pay for your travels. So that was what pro meant. But now it's completely different, you know? If you think about your favorite sports team, it's probably exactly the same thing.
And esports isn't a new thing. It's been around for, what, like 20 years or something like that. But a lot of people are saying this year, last year, it's the year that it really broke through. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I want to say there was two major pivoting moments into esports. There was the arrival of Twitch TV and I want to say YouTube gaming. YouTube was a little bit earlier, but Twitch TV really kind of made esports become mainstream. Like it was the TV of gaming where people could start to watch competition, and it kind of legitimized the whole deal where you had the TSN or ESPN of gaming happening everywhere around the world all the time. And as far as what happened last year and this year, I think it was the arrival of Fortnite, which, you know, I think it was a perfect storm where the community was ready, the mainstream people were ready, kids were ready, like everybody was ready to have that moment where Fortnite became the game, where sports athletes are playing it and kids are playing it and parents know about it and it's breaking records, so it's on TV and media for the amount of money people can win or the amount of players playing it, or, you know, all these kind of things kind of combined, how easy it is to watch it and how easy it is to compete, and how 14 years old kids were playing in the World Cup winning thousands and thousands of dollars in the game, qualifying online in their living room. So I think that was also like a major turn.
And how unusual is that? Do you think like other games can use the channel of esports to get to a mass acceptance like that?
Can other games do it? I also think they can. I think we're going to see it again. We're going to see new types of games kind of rise, and that's the goal. That's what we're looking for, because the more mainstream gaming becomes, the better all communities become. In the end, we're all in this together. Like, there's a battle. I want to say battle might not be the right word, but there is a fight that we do for recognition, for acceptance, to break prejudice and to break kind of the bad stigma that there is around gaming, where for whatever reason it's the new devil, it's the new rock and roll, right? A video game, actually, from a lot of the studies, disprove what people have been saying, that you're more violent when you play games, that you're more antisocial when you play games, that you don't learn anything when you play games, that it's a waste of time. All of that has been disproved in studies where you actually learn so many skill sets: multitasking, problem solving. Like, I learned English as I say the word English, and I struggle with it. I learned English through games. Yes, it was school, but I maintained it and polished it and brought it to the next level with gaming, because I have to interact all the time in English. And for me, it was a chance to learn a second language, travel the world, meet friends everywhere that I still to this day visit when I can, make connection, pretty much learn so many soft skills, from teamwork to communication skills to leadership. And now I'm really focused on having a healthy balanced lifestyle with my physical coaches, my mental coaches, and everything that has to do with how can my life make me a better gamer, which means taking breaks, which mean making sure I sleep well, I eat well, making sure I face my emotion properly. And all of that makes me a better gamer, which makes me a better human. So it's a lot of stigma. For some reason, we still see a gamer being represented by people playing in their basement in the dark, which is so weird to me, because I've always played with my girlfriends like in the sun, like Mario Kart, like I'm the opposite of that. And I've always promoted these kind of values, because I think gaming can be done in a healthy and in a successful way.
Were your parents worried that you were spending so much time staring at a screen with headphones on?
They would tell you not at all, because I was always into everything. So art, had good grades at school. I was doing sports. I loved music. So yeah, there were summers where I was way more into gaming than other summers. But then school started again and I went back to it. I always see it like, gaming is part of your overall life. If you eat only broccoli, you'll be sick. But broccoli is good for you. And I see gaming like broccoli, where if I only do gaming, it's horrible, it's awful. But if I balance it with the rest of my life, it is an enriching and beautiful experience.
I want to talk about the esports scene in Canada, where it has been growing. It's been getting more popular. It's been getting bigger dollar-wise. The revenues are like 4 times what they were this year compared to like 4 years ago. But it's still tiny. It's tiny, especially compared to countries in Asia where you have like the gaming rooms on every block, and like some cities have, tens of thousands of them anyways. So since you've been involved in esports, how have you seen things develop here in Canada?
I think it's very recent, that push for esports. There was always small initiatives across the country, but most of them were community initiatives or school initiatives. Companies were a little shy in investment. I think even video game studios were a little shy on participating into that kind of flourishing sphere, because it is risky. It is not that easy. Also, I think Canada is a market that hasn't been exploited, so we don't know if it can be successful, kind of. We have superstars in Canada in almost all the games. We have pro players in Overwatch, League of Legends, Street Fighter, Smash, StarCraft, Counter-Strike, one of the best in the world, Fortnite, on all of these games. And I think that's amazing because that means that Canada, as far as the competitive aspects, we're there. We show up. We can represent Canada on the top scene. So it's just a matter of having the population understand that we're there. I think we still haven't reached the mainstream where we can support our Canadians. Most of the time, we don't know they're Canadians. We're just kind of citizen of the world, if I want to say. Like most people think we're Americans, but most of the famous female gamers are Canadians.
And you have been living in LA for how long?
So I lived in LA for 2 years, and I moved back recently to Quebec, just because I missed being here. Like, I love being here. I love being close to my family. I was in a gaming house for 2 years.
Now, what does that mean?
So a gaming house is where you live with your teammates and you kind of compete together and practice together.
It sounds like a reality show or something.
Kind of.
It's a reality show, but there's no cameras.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for many reasons, it was easier to do that. It was cost effective. But for me, I think 2 years was enough.
So I want to talk about the money side of the business, where the money comes from, where it's going, who's getting it, all of that stuff. It is about $1 billion global industry this year, which sounds, again, like a lot of money. But then when you look at the game industry in general, it's like $150 billion. So esports is less than 1% of the whole business. It's like half comes from sponsorships, a quarter comes from broadcasters buying license fees, and about a quarter from tickets sold to live events, right? And merchandise. This is a very different economic structure compared to other sports or other performing industries. Why is that?
There's a lot of factor. I think that just because the ticket sales and the broadcasting rights are a little different. There isn't, like, all the matches are not done in tickets in stadiums, in arenas, at places where people can show up and watch. Most of them happen online, so they're kind of quote unquote free. So you don't get any revenue from it. A lot of it happens on Twitch, or any other platforms, but usually it is also free. And
Amazon owns Twitch, right?
Yeah. And also for the spectators, it's always free almost. And for the companies, the money usually goes back to the companies making the tournaments. So not necessarily in the pockets of the players, so it stays within who is investing. So the tournament is doing a tournament, and they're giving their broadcast rights to Twitch or Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. So the money goes in and out, but it doesn't go to the players because it just doesn't work that way in esports. It's kind of interesting. Also people own the game while nobody kind of owns hockey or football. So that adds a layer of complexity where you can't just create like a tournament in your basement if the company doesn't want you to. It's a little more
you need their permission to do that.
For a lot of the tournaments, not all of them, but a lot of the companies are really, really severe on if you can make a tournament or not. I think we haven't found the right way to monetize esports.
Well, yeah. You've been a professional for almost 15 years. Explain how you get paid, because this is what you do. This is your whole life.
So I get paid from like 15 different people, right? So I get paid for every contract I do. So if I do a conference, or if I speak in a school, or I speak in a library, usually I get paid like that. I also get paid by my sponsors. So a lot of them are main partners. So they give me like some sort of salary throughout the year. And that's always, you don't know what's going to happen next, right? With those kind of incomes.
And plus, you've got to have agents and managers and people who are negotiating these contracts on your behalf, and then they're taking a percentage too.
Yeah. So, but to be fair, I don't think I would negotiate as good as my agent. So he's earning.
He's very happy to hear this right now.
He's earning his share of what he's making me earn. Also, you have tournaments earning, which for some people can be a lot depending on the scene you're in. So if you're in Fortnite, we're talking millions here, or if you're in Dota 2, just as well. But if you're in like fighting games is probably a lot smaller. So you have to find other ways to do incomes, whether it's through broadcasting on Twitch, so ad revenues. Or
do you do that?
YouTube, yeah. So YouTube revenues, ad revenues on Twitch, or fans subscribing to your page and supporting you. So that's also a good amount of income. You can also have a salary if you're on a team. So if you play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, for example, you get a salary from them.
You get a really good salary.
Yeah. So it's the same thing in esports. You deal your salary with these teams across the board, and sometimes you can get drafted or picked up by other teams, and you renegotiate your salaries and whatnot. And for players like League of Legends, that's how they make most of their income. It's really through the salaries, which I think average around $300,000 a year. So they're pretty good salaries for League of Legends. So I think every scene has a different kind of a way of making money. Me, it's all of that included. And sometimes influencer work on social media like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. I think companies are shifting their spending towards these sometimes micro-influencer or big influencers. So even if you're a micro-influencer and you don't have a lot of people, you can still make left and right like 200, and it adds up. So that's why I started my own company, to gather all of that and make sure that I was okay with the government of Canada.
There is this huge gender gap in pay, because I looked at the numbers, and it's something like, for the guys, if in the list of the male top 100 players, every one of them has made, it says, over $800,000. And then if you look at the list for the female players, only 20 in the top 100 have made over $25,000, and out of those ones, 2 have made over $100,000. So there's like a massive gap there. Why do you think that is?
Well, the main reason I think is because we compete in the main competitions, in the same ones, in the same competitions, and guys are just better at the moment.
They're better players?
Yeah, so I think that's the main reason. So
that's interesting. So objectively speaking, you say that they are better players.
Because of the current demographic. So what I mean is that there's 1,000 guy for one girl competing, or maybe 10,000 guy or 1,000,000 guy for one girl competing, right? And because of that, the chances of that girl being the best player in the world is really, really slim. So,
but you did it
to a certain degree. So I was never like the top Counter-Strike player in the world. Or if not, I would be in that top 100 in the salary. So
what does it mean? You're a 5-time champion in it. Yeah. What does that mean then?
So I played in tournaments where it was female-only tournaments, where I became a 5-time champion over there. So it wasn't mixed. It was really to promote female gaming and push forward female initiatives, kind of like incubators. There's maybe 3 or 4 tournaments like that a year across the board, worldwide, just to promote gaming and competitive gaming in a specific demographic, in a minority, which is female. I compare it to being a 5-time a 5-time collegiate champion, right? Okay. We have collegiate tournament because we want to promote basketball within college, right? We want to make sure they pursue their studies or whatnot, and we just have these tournaments, and we don't allow the NBA players to play in it, right? So it's a little bit like that. These female events, they're made to kind of empower a specific demographic and allow them to pursue their dream and career on the sides, but also get some sort of recognition for their talents. So I won 5 of those World Cups.
I feel like you've got a really strong grasp of like how all these little pockets, these different parts of the industry are working, and also the business aspects of it. How do you see the overall industry developing from here?
So for me, it's about making a career out of it, from amateur to semi-pro to pro to retirement to career opportunities.
Retirement. She's talking about retirement.
Yeah, but like, what do you do after you're a pro gamer? Like so that whole process where we don't support amateur right now. We don't support kind of semi-pro people where they have to do this full time, but they don't have the salaries of doing it full time. And there's a transition where you take risks and you're on your own. Also, you're a pro, but are you a pro for 10 years or 2 years because something happens, your games becomes irrelevant, or the money leaves that game, or for whatever reason, well, for a lot of reason, it's not like the NHL, right? Where like, except if you have an injury, you know what your career is going to look like. Is it going to be a long career, a short career? Like, where do you put your eggs in the basket, right?
Right.
For me, honestly, it happened so many times where in a way, I felt like I lost everything.
Really?
Like, I left my team, or I got cut from a team, and like I lost my salary, like bam, like from my team, like within a month, So these kind of things happen in esports where you have a 1-year contract and you don't have a 10-year contract or a 5-year contract, and and at the same time you don't want a 10-year contract because you don't know where the game is going to be in 10 years, or if it's not going to triple in money, So it's super tricky. There's very little stability. There's very little clear path. Like if you're a parent right now and your kid is interested, how the hell do you help him become pro? Like it's not like he needs to join this league and you know what to do, and you go to parents kind of committees and you support your child when you can, and it's so difficult. There's no clear path, and it's like we're still fighting to be recognized as a hobby, and we have parents like coming to me and what can I do to help?
Okay, what do you tell them?
Well, I usually tell them be there for them, learn about the game they're playing, learn about the rules, learn about the teammates, understand the sacrifices your kid has to do when he has to, for example, practice around dinner time. Like don't force him to not play for 4 hours because it's dinner time and in homework. Like try to work around him.
It's the version of the 5 a.m. hockey practices,
Pretend
right?
He's playing soccer. Pretend he's playing chess or the violin. What would you do? Would you sit and listen to him play the violin and support him? Yes, do the same thing. Would you watch his games if he had like soccer games? Do the same thing. Would you give him a lift or a ride if he needed to leave his school and go to his hockey game at the ring? Well, why don't you give him a lift if he needs to do his match online to be able to qualify for a tournament? It's the same thing. You need to be there for him, understand the world, and treat this as if this is an opportunity and this is a learning experience for him. And even if he doesn't become pro, he'll grow from being involved in the community, just like a really bad hockey player, soccer player, but that would still have a life-changing experience just to be part of the team.
That's Stephanie Harvey. And this has been Now and Next, a podcast brought to you by the Canada Media Fund. You can find us in all the usual places you find your podcasts. And if you think you'd like to hear more episodes like this one, you know what you can always do? Yep, you can subscribe. And if you're liking what you hear on this podcast, 2 things to keep in mind. You can help us out by reviewing the show on iTunes. That's really a big part of how people decide what to listen to. And you can find new articles every week on the CMF's Trends website. And the easiest way to find that is to Google CMF, as in Canada Media Fund, Trends. And that is it for now. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll come back next time for more Now and Next. I'm Leora Kornfeld.